More 49ers intel from Las Vegas. Hello and welcome to the show. The second and final joint practice of 49ers and Raiders is completed. And here you're going to hear all the fair, unbiased analysis from a long session. This was a long one out in the heat today in Henderson, outside of the Raiders facility. They've got a nice air-conditioned building there, but we don't practice in the air-conditioned building. We cover practice out in the sunshine. And while there were a few raindrops on Thursday and a lot of cloud cover and some cooler weather, that really wasn't the case. It was in the 90s in the morning today as the 49ers and the Raiders locked horns again. I'm going to keep this big picture before we delve into the details, but the 49ers and the Raiders, they went after it the past 2 days. And this is exactly what you want to see if you're a fan of either team, if you're a coach of either team, or a player of either team. I think both of these competitive players on both sides. We obviously know the Raiders have some 49ers defections. The 49ers have some Raiders defections. Cleveland Farrell is with them. But, I mean, this was good work. This was good work in the heat and a chance for, Brock Purdy to continue working back from his elbow injury to be the 49ers QB1 at the start of the season. On the reverse side, Jimmy Garoppolo is following a parallel path as Brock Purdy, right? Jimmy Garoppolo is coming back from the foot injury. He threw, 7 interceptions in a 2-practice stretch last weekend. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw any over the 2-practice stretch against the 49ers. He looked a lot better. So a tale of two quarterbacks, both have 49ers Kyle Shanahan experience, right, with Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. Tell these two quarterbacks getting work in against another defense, an unfamiliar defense, on their path toward 2023 readiness. And from that perspective, I think that a lot of good work did happen in front of us this weekend in Vegas. The 49ers were the ones throwing interceptions today, 6 total. Brock Purdy threw 2 in 11-on-11 work, and then there was one more in 7-on-7 work, and then Lance and Darnold both throwing picks to round it out at 6 for the 49ers. So obviously a sloppier day for the offense. Purdy's pick in 7-on-7 play clanged off of Deebo Samuel's helmet, so it really wasn't Brock Purdy's fault. That being said, Brock Purdy's interception rate, I think, in this training camp, a little bit higher than the 49ers want it to be, but it's obviously not anything to freak out about. And that's something I'm going to go and delve into in bigger picture detail, because people make way too big of a deal about individual August practices. And more than that, they make huge deals out of individual throws in August practices. Well, let me tell you that individual throws in August and individual practices in August are not referendums on players. They're not good opportunities to take victory laps on social media. It just makes you seem like a complete idiot if you act like this. The point of training camp is a big picture grind toward the start of regular season. You're installing plays. In the case of these practices the past 2 days against the Raiders, you're practicing them against another team. You're also allowing your players to get back up to game speed. There are players who were hurt last year who didn't have a chance to go through the full offseason program. Brock Purdy is obviously one of them. Jimmy Garoppolo on the other side is another one of them. You use training camp practices to return to speed. So if you're going to look at anything in training camp and make a big picture conclusion, you're probably not going to end up looking very smart on the other side of things. That's just not the point of work in sports. It's not the point of training camp in the NFL. You can identify trends, which is what I do. I look at completions. I look at attempts. I put all of those numbers into a detailed log with notes to see what the 49ers are installing offensively. And I also obviously look at interceptions, because you do want to limit those interceptions once the regular season starts. You want to identify what's problematic in training camp and what's problematic in the regular season, and see if there's any carryover in between the two. So this is going to be a big picture perspective show that looks at the details of practice. We're not going to have knee-jerk reactions toward every single interception. When Trey Lance throws a bad pass, when Trey Lance throws an interception, then we look at it within the context of how Trey Lance has to improve. We're fair to Trey. When Brock Purdy throws an interception, we look at it in the context of where Brock Purdy must improve. What's happening coming off his elbow injury, we're fair to Brock Purdy. It's two different quarterbacks, two different circumstances, but they're all working towards similar goals, right? And that is increased efficiency within the context of what they do well skill-wise. So that's the fair look at quarterbacks. Obviously, social media probably is incapable of doing that on a large scale because you have people looking at every individual practice and every individual throw as some kind of referendum, but it simply does not work that way. Okay, anyway, let's get on with the 49ers intel. I'm going to start with a sizzle reel. I know the 49ers and the Raiders aren't coming out with sizzle reels on social media of their own, but the good thing is that I was able to shoot a sizzle reel with my camera. And we had cinematic mode to do it with the iPhone. So let's go ahead and put it up there and take a look at what happened today at practice on a hot day. That cinematic mode really shines through in the desert, doesn't it? Talanoa Hufanga, 49ers secondary. You have Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, works directly with the 49ers cornerbacks, and he stands there by all the defensive backs during warm-up to practice. You see Wilks there in the red jersey. And I pan over to Miles Hartsfield, who is a safety from the Carolina Panthers, who played with Wilks there. Wilks made sure the 49ers signed Miles Hartsfield to be able to install the system that he wants to run. Obviously, the 49ers are keeping so many of their defensive principles, but many of the details that Steve Wilks loves to run, he wanted a player that was familiar with them to help be a coach on the field, and that was Miles Hartsfield, who you just saw in this video. By the way, Hartsfield on Thursday against the Raiders delivered a pick six against Brian Hoyer, former 49ers quarterback. I mean, speaking of poor 49ers quarterback play and the misidentification of it, I think a lot of people will see one pick at training camp and think, oh, bad quarterback play. Well, remember what 2017 was for the 49ers. Brian Hoyer didn't throw a lot of picks in training camp. Brian Hoyer, though, was not an efficient quarterback. So you want efficiency above all else. I'm going to rewind here because I noticed that that's Mike Shanahan. Take a look at Mike. Coaching experience with the Raiders and with the 49ers. So it was cool for him to be on that field. I think that's Ed McCaffrey with Mike Shanahan out on the field. Christian McCaffrey's dad. So Ed and Mike, they both have very, very strong roots in that Denver area. Ed lives in that Denver area. Mike Shanahan has a steakhouse there. They're both out at practice today. A look at Deshaun Jameson, 49ers undrafted free agent, defensive back at the Raiders team facility. I think I shot that in vertical mode. Should put it on my Instagram story. You can follow me there. That's why we got the two black lines on the side. Back to landscape mode. Ambry Thomas, you can tell he's a little bulked up. He's definitely stronger than he was the past couple of years. We saw him going mano-a-mano with George Kittle a few days ago at practice, one at the point of attack. Strength is going to be the key for Ambry Thomas. And working with Steve Wilks. Look at Wilks and Trey Swilling, number 35 there. That's a defensive coordinator giving hands-on work to a bottom-of-the-roster cornerback. Gives you an idea of how involved Steve Wilks is at these practices for the 49ers. We're in the red. There's Deommodore Lenoir, the hyena. That's what he calls himself. He's going to be a starter for the 49ers opposite Charvarius Ward. I was really happy I had to focus on the DBs today with the cinematic mode shots because the DBs are going to be such an important component of the 49ers' potential success this year. And I think physically, Ambry Thomas, I mean, it is noticeable. There's more mass here. I mean, he was really, really frail as rookie back in 2021. Didn't see all too much of him in 2022, but winning at the point of attack, starting to outmuscle the receivers that used to outmuscle him, that's going to be really, really key for Ambry Thomas. You see number 0, Samuel Womack, number 2, Deommodore Lenoir, both players who changed to single digits. Jimmy Garoppolo in his training camp pointed out, oh, Demo's wearing number 2 now. He was wearing, number, I think, 38 last year. If you're changing to a single digit, you must be doing something right. Those single digits are coveted, especially for defensive backs. So you don't get one unless you've got some pull within the locker room. And you get pull within the locker room by delivering interceptions if you're a cornerback. You just look faster if you're wearing that single digit. More Steve Wilks working with these 49ers defensive backs. They were wearing the red. The Raiders made them wear the red. The Raiders don't want to wear their black jerseys outside at practice in the desert. So they had the home field advantage in Henderson. The 49ers had to wear the dark jerseys in the heat. But they did fine with them. It was a good back and forth practice today between the 49ers and the Raiders at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center So they did not get paid for that product placement, but I did do the camera pan on my own. So I guess I could take responsibility for that. A lot of Trey Swilling in cinematic mode in today's sizzle reel. There's Isaiah Oliver. You can see how big Isaiah Oliver is for Nickelback. I mean, the 49ers typically in the past with K'Wan Williams, you're talking 5'9", 185. Isaiah Oliver, 6 feet, 210. I think he might have cut some weight since joining the 49ers. Look at Deshaun Jameson, undrafted free agent. And now we move to Robert Beal Jr., 5th-round pick for the 49ers out of Georgia, 55. He returned to practice today. He had been out for several practices, so that was good for the 49ers to get Robert Beal back in the lineup. 49ers were working on some tip picks today, making sure they secured that football as it changed direction in the air. You'll see a lot of these kind of creative drills early on in a 49ers practice. They're specialty drills, and you've got to give them credit. Last year, the 49ers led the league in turnover margin. They were number 1 in turnover margin, number 1 in interceptions. They say that fumble recoveries are luck. Statistically, there probably is a lot of luck behind them, but you do have to have your reflexes ready, and that's what the 49ers are doing here. That's Austin Bryant. He's got that lean lower body, skinnier legs, but he does have enough strength to play the run. In fact, some would argue that Austin Bryant, that's been his strong suit in the NFL so far, stopping the run versus rushing the passer. But he's rushed the passer well for the 49ers ever since coming off a minor injury a few days ago. It's going to be Bryant. It's going to be Cleveland Farrell. Right now, the 49ers are a little bit thin at defensive end, so both of those guys getting more run than they had in the past. Javon Kinlaw, Matt Barrows wrote his article on him today. You can tell he's bouncier off the offseason of Pilates, developing the small muscles, just trying to make sure that he's in a good, competent athletic place to take pressure off of a knee that's given him a lot of trouble in the past. Jair Brown, 27. He's going to be fun to watch in the preseason game on Sunday. You could see how well built Jair Brown is for a rookie safety. And the 49ers can't wait until live tackling begins. They haven't done any live tackling yet in practice, even against the Raiders. You can't bring guys to the ground, or you're not allowed to. You certainly can. And today's practice opened with Charvarius Ward just laying out Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams is now hurt. Minor leg injury, the Raiders said. So we'll see how that works out. There's the new guy for the 49ers, 66. They signed him today. Defensive line signing to bolster out the edge room for the 49ers. So 66 is Breland Speaks. They put Anthony Averett, the cornerback out of Alabama, they signed last week on season-ending injured reserve. 55, another look at Robert Beal, back at practice for the first time today. And that about wraps up 49ers intel from Las Vegas, the Raiders facility. Hope you enjoyed the little sizzle reel there of warm-up shot by yours truly. So 6 interceptions across the board for the 49ers. Why don't we, study Brock Purdy's interception rate so we have a better idea of context here. So far this training camp, this is just percentage of interceptions. So interceptions divided by the total pass attempts. Brock Purdy has thrown an interception on 4.5% of his attempts. Trey Lance is at 2.1%. Sam Darnold having a really nice camp, taking care of the football. He's at 1.1%. If you want perspective on this number, league average is about 2%, the interception rate. So Trey Lance is right at league average, but that's for games. Brock Purdy is much higher than league average, but this is in practice. Brock Purdy last year was at 2.4%. So Brock Purdy's interception rate in the 2022 season was just a little bit higher than league average. But the 49ers didn't care that it was a little higher than league average because he was so damn efficient. They were getting top 8 efficiency from Brock Purdy. You know who else's interception rate was higher than league average for most of his time with the 49ers was Jimmy Garoppolo's. But the 49ers didn't care because Jimmy Garoppolo was efficient when he was healthy with the 49ers. That's why you keep on running him back out there. If a quarterback is throwing an interception rate that is higher than the league average and he's inefficient, that's when you start running into big problems. Of course, you always want to keep interceptions as low as possible, but you still want to make sure that you're taking chances as a quarterback. You still want to try to find the way through tight windows because that's how the NFL works. Guys are not that often wide open. You do have to take enough chances to make music on offense, And with that comes a slight interception or a greater interception risk, depending on the throw. So in the case of Garoppolo, the 49ers were able to get his interception rate much lower, down to 1.3% in the 2022 season. A lot of people credit Brian Griese. Then Brock Purdy came in as a seventh-round pick, and it wasn't as good as Jimmy Garoppolo's rate, but 2.4% was still workable for the 49ers. He's coming off of an elbow injury now, and he's throwing a lot of picks. Everybody gets it here in training camp. Is he throwing 7 picks in 2 practices? No, he hasn't done that. He threw 3 picks over the past 2 practices against the Raiders. 26 attempts today, heavy workload for Brock Purdy. But again, I have to go back to what I was talking about at the start of the show. August practices and August throws, 1 interception at a time, are not referendums on players. During the season, you're going to start to game plan for specific opponents. You're going to start to run, risk mitigation strategies to make sure that you're not putting the ball in harm's way on certain interceptable passes. You're not planning for the Raiders in practice in that way. You're just running your stuff against a different defense for the first time, and you're seeing where the kinks are. You're identifying some of the mistakes. You're identifying some of the problems so you can go back to the drawing board and fix them. So that's why it's so stupid to not look at this as a big picture August build for the 49ers. I'm showing you the numbers. I'm calmly reacting to them. Brock Purdy is going to have to throw fewer interceptions as the regular season starts, but I can tell you what the 49ers are thinking, and that's they're not worried about it because they know that he'll, in all likelihood, throw fewer interceptions when the regular season starts. A 4.5% interception rate is too high. Peyton Manning was at like 4.9% as a rookie in the NFL. That was too high. Peyton Manning found his way down as time went along. Brock Purdy, coming off of the elbow surgery, well, he'll find his way down in that interception rate column as time goes along. We're in the desert, so it's important to stay hydrated. To move on to Sam Darnold. So I'm not sure if Sam Darnold or Trey Lance is going to start in this game on Sunday. I think the 49ers are going to try to give equal opportunities to both as far as snap count or drive count, however you want to look at it. In the case of these 2 practices, the 49ers did what they'd been doing throughout training camp leading to today, and that is dividing up the workload between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold evenly. Some practice, I mean, it's every other practice, right, when the 49ers are at their own facility. So you'll have a practice where Trey Lance gets the first run with the 2s. Then you'll have the practice next one where Sam Darnold gets the first run with the 2s. If Brock Purdy is out on that particular day, then it's a split between the 1s. And on one day, Lance will get the first run with them. And then on the next day that Brock Purdy is out, Sam Darnold will get the first run with them. No one quarterback, Lance or Darnold, has gotten priority over the other. It's been an even split. So it's really hard to gauge who is in the lead as far as Kyle Shanahan's mind goes. I have my thoughts about it, and I've already shared those. I think that Shanahan's going to go with the quarterback with the highest floor so far. I think Trey Lance has done a good job showing that his floor is raising. He missed some of those gimmies, a lot of them actually early in camp. He's been more accurate on those passes later. As you saw in my graphic on interception rate, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy are both doing a generally good job of avoiding interceptions. And as the backup quarterback or as 2 quarterbacks in competition for number 2, floor is more important than ceiling. You've got to keep the offense moving without detonating it. Well, at 2.1% and 1.1%, only 1 interception for Sam Darnold. I think both QBs are doing a good job. Anyway, Darnold today had the lion's share of the QB2 work. Lance came in for a couple snaps. Darnold got more of it. That wasn't a lot because the 49ers gave so much to Purdy, just like the Raiders gave a lot to Garoppolo. It was a QB1 type of day. But whereas you saw the 49ers and give so much to Purdy, the 26 snaps to Purdy, and give the next bit to either Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, you saw on Thursday the majority of that second team work was for Lance. Today it was for Darnold, and he had a 3-throw stretch that I have written down here in my notes that I thought was very, very impressive in 11-on-11 work. Daz Newsome made one of the catches for the 49ers. Willie Snead made another one of the catches for the 49ers. And the third one went to Brandon Ayuk. So first team receiver working with the second team quarterback there at the end. And Ayuk had another big day. Ayuk then was middle of a shoving match. I will say that the first team offense, you talk about Purdy's INT, right? Well, we got to talk about what Purdy did well. Marches the first team offense down the field for a score to open practice. Then things kind of hit a slog in the middle. That's when the 2 interceptions happened. And then he finished practice with a quarterback run for a touchdown after a nice drive. So it was a little bit of a crap sandwich, if you will, right? There was 2 good things on the front end and on the back end, and then in the middle, you had the struggles for the 49ers. Anyway, after Purdy ran in his touchdown at the end of practice, that is when the shoving match happened between the 49ers and the Raiders that I talked about earlier, and I think Brandon Ayuk was in the middle of that. Anyway, before that, he made the nice catch from Sam Darnold, who's able to make all the throws, and we already knew this. It is about playbook mastery for Sam Darnold because he's the newest quarterback as far as Kyle Shanahan's system goes. Brock Purdy's been in the system already, right? Trey Lance has been in the system already. Sam Darnold hasn't. And along those lines, Kyle Shanahan had an interesting quote about Sam. How has Sam come around as far as making quick decisions and knowing the playbook? Here's what Kyle Shanahan said. I think Sam's gotten better each practice. It's his first time in the offense, and I've been really encouraged with just how he spits the plays out, how he can call them, where he is now compared to the first couple of days. He doesn't seem like it's the first time going through it, so he's getting better each week, getting more comfortable, and I'm excited to see him in some of these games. That was Kyle Shanahan on Sam Darnold yesterday. Then Darnold delivered a solid day in limited action today. I think these games are going to be huge because, the play gets radioed in. Darnold has to listen before the radio cuts off at, I think, 15 seconds. He's got to communicate it to all his teammates. There could be noise in a stadium. He has to step up to the line. He has to execute. All of these are logistical details that a lot of people don't often think about regarding the quarterback position. And I haven't even gotten into the fact that Sam Darnold's job is going to be to survey the opposing defense and his own offensive formation when he steps up to the line of scrimmage. And then he's going to have to decide what to do with that, if there's going to be an audible, if there's going to be some kind of check before a bunch of 300-pound defensive linemen are looking to behead him after the snap. I mean, it's not easy to play quarterback in the National Football League, especially when you're learning a new playbook. So in the case of Darnold, the 49ers are just trying to get him acclimated. And I did notice a little bit earlier in camp, there might have been a little bit extra lag time from when the play was signaled in to when Darnold was able to communicate it, to him stepping up to the line of scrimmage, surveying the defense, taking the snap, and going downfield. And that extra lag time absolutely needs to be eliminated by the start of the regular season. But I think if you listen to what Kyle Shanahan said about Sam Darnold yesterday, he is making significant progress on that front, and that is good news for the 49ers. And this weekend, Purdy's not going to play in all likelihood on Sunday, so Darnold and Lance are going to have the lion's share of reps. We'll see how each one manages a game situation, and that management and who shows the higher floor, who shows Kyle Shanahan that, you can be more comfortable with me, that's probably going to be the quarterback that earns the QB2 role behind Brock Purdy. Today, I was watching some one-on-ones, and I'll tell you this, the 49ers linebackers and put it the other way around, the 49ers running backs and tight ends absolutely smoked the Raiders safeties and linebackers. You look over to that part of the field for just a split second, and it is, Christian McCaffrey is 10 yards behind Robert Spillane. And Spillane had a couple picks today. He had the one that bounced off of Debo's helmet in 7-on-7s, and then he intercepted Brock Purdy in an 11-on-11. So Spillane was making plays. I think Max Crosby called Robert Spillane an animal the other day. He was making plays, but he wasn't making plays in one-on-ones against Christian McCaffrey, who just roasted him. Kyle Juszczyk on the next play against Divine Diablo. Nice little out, another burn for the 49ers. And that's the fullback. So my big question is, do we see Kyle Juszczyk in on some punt returns this weekend? Because Kyle Shanahan was semi-joking that Kyle Juszczyk is the best punt catcher on the team. That's obviously only part of the job. You have to have some agility and some explosiveness. But with Ray McLeod hurt, that is an open competition for the 49ers. And speaking of agility for Kyle Juszczyk, well, I think that he definitely showed some in practice today when he beat the linebacker Divine Diablo on those one-on-ones. We haven't talked about Jimmy Garoppolo yet. We talked about him a lot yesterday because that was the official reunion with the 49ers, and this is technically another reunion. So more Jimmy out there on the field. He moved the ball effectively against the 49ers defense on Thursday for the Raiders. Did so again on Friday for the Raiders against the 49ers. Jimmy was solid over 2 days. Is that a bad sign for the 49ers defense? Who knows? But, I wouldn't read it as one at face value. We all know that Jimmy Garoppolo is a good NFL quarterback. We all know that he's got a quick release, that he probably is going to give some of the 49ers blitzing tendencies trouble. I thought that he was accurate. I read all these reports about the struggles of Jimmy Garoppolo last weekend. I mentioned 7 interceptions in 2 days at Raiders practice. Didn't throw a single one over 2 days of practice against the 49ers. So we're going to keep a close eye on Garoppolo. I highly doubt that he'll play at all against the 49ers on Sunday. But how he does in this 2023 season in a new system is going to be fascinating. It might start to answer so many legacy debates. I mean, so many people will say, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo is just a product of Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. But that, doesn't really hold up to the fact that whenever Shanahan has started other quarterbacks like Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer, who's now Garoppolo's backup with the Raiders, well, the 49ers haven't done so well. So Shanahan's system is obviously valuable, but quarterback play is important too. And now Garoppolo is going to have a chance to prove himself in another system, one that he's familiar with because Josh McDaniels was his first offensive coordinator in New England, but it's changed because that system has evolved since then. And Jimmy Garoppolo has been able to add some 49ers concepts into it, the ones that he really liked under Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, those two had a tense relationship at times. We've talked about that on many shows, but it was a good, productive working relationship that netted the 49ers a lot of efficiency from the quarterback position when Garoppolo was healthy. So these two practices really brought a lot of that full circle. Cool. I think I went through so much of it. I'm going to talk about some of the one-on-ones that happened today because that was primetime entertainment. Let's go through this. Happy Friday to everyone, by the way. We're going to go out to the Strip tonight in Vegas, get a nice sushi dinner. It's going to be really, really good. Have the day off tomorrow, see what I do then. And then it's game day on Sunday. Then it's back to the Bay Area after that for the resumption of training camp. But we are done with the practices in heat. Oh, so the tone-setting play today at practice. Should mention it because I mentioned a skirmish earlier. And I did mention Davante Adams getting hit by Charvarius Ward. That was the very, very first play of 11-on-11 work. And it was Ward and Oren Burks very close to the play. I was sitting there with Greg Papa, who had his binoculars out, and he saw Ward lower the shoulder there a couple fields away and knock Davante Adams down. It's not a play that you want to see as a coach of either side in these practices because these practices don't feature tackling to the ground. But there definitely was a tackle to the ground on that play from Charvarius Ward and Oren Burks. But Papa saw Ward bringing that shoulder in with the binoculars. Normally he would be closer, but obviously, I'm sure you've heard the stories of the Raiders exiling him to the bleachers. So he's there in the bleachers with me. We're watching and we see this hit, and it took a while for Davante Adams to get up. And then they said that he had a lower leg injury. So that set the tone for some physicality and one-on-ones, which I want to go through right now. So Max Crosby beat Colton McKivitz with a spin move. Trial by fire for Colton McKivitz the past couple of days. Worked against Crosby, worked against Chandler Jones, who wasn't in on it today. Probably a vet day for Chandler Jones, but Crosby was really good. I mentioned earlier that Jason Poe looked good. I said that Jordan Willis, who's now with the Raiders, blasted. I mean, absolutely blasted by Matt Pryor, who I'm not sure if Matt Pryor is going to make the 49ers roster as a swing tackle because Willis didn't do as well against Leroy Watson. I don't even know if the 49ers swing tackle for this 2023 season is on the team at this point because you've got Jalen Moore, who's been dealing with the bone bruise in his knee. You have Matt Pryor, a veteran who hasn't looked great. And you have Leroy Watson, who was a tight end just about a year ago, is converting from that position. He looked better against Willis than Pryor did today, but we absolutely should keep our eyes on the 49ers making a move in the trade market at cutdown day for a swing tackle. That, to me, was one of the big takeaways today from the one-on-ones. I'm watching and I see Pryor get beat and I'm like, oh boy. Then I see Watson win his rep and I'm saying, well, maybe the upside here for Watson is going to be realized sooner rather than later. Jason Poe, good today. And then the Raiders, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and now I'm finally going to be able to give you a name. It was Spencer Burford, the 49ers right guard. He was working against Neil Farrell Jr., who is a Raiders defensive tackle. And he tried to spin on Burford, and Burford said, nope, none of that. Burford just pancaked him, knocked him straight to the ground. Nice play from Spencer Burford, who had, he had a rookie season where he started for the 49ers throughout, but he had his struggles. Let's be honest about Spencer Burford's early career action. The 49ers are going to need to get better along the right guard spot on the offensive line. And I thought that Spencer Burford today, with his win on one-on-ones, and then some of the stuff the 49ers are saying about him here and his maturity over the course of camp, I think that there are many indications that he will be able to deliver for the 49ers, improve play this year at right guard, which I think was the weak link of their offensive line last season. I think I went through all of it. It was Spillane and Marcus Peters who intercepted Purdy today. Mike Shanahan, I said, he was out on the field. Brock Purdy, 15 of 26. Not Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo hit DeAndre Carter, former 49er, for a touchdown. Trey Lance, 1 of 2. Sam Darnold, 3 of 3. Fun stuff at the facility. All right. We've gone for over 30 minutes. That means that it is time for 49ers Q&A, and also time to play the sizzle reel again. There you go. Let me open this up to some questions. All right, I'm ready for questions. Here's one. How's McKivitz doing against the Raiders? I thought that he held his own on Thursday in a couple reps against the Stars for the Raiders. There was one against Max Crosby that he was able to hold Crosby off. Crosby did beat him before that. Today, there was only one rep between Crosby and McKivitz, and Crosby won it with that swim move. Post your questions. Purdy is 100% right now, so I expect Purdy to start. I'm not going to predict an injury. The question is, who do you think will start at QB if Purdy isn't 100% week 1? But he is 100%, so why would we do that? Appreciate you, Jeremy. Does it look like the crowd at running back room will keep Christian McCaffrey away from 1,000? I think that the crowd at receiver room might keep Christian McCaffrey away from 1,000 more, because I think with health, he'll get to $1,000 on the ground, but he was only on pace for about 700 yards receiving last year with the 49ers if you had extrapolated that over a full season. So it probably makes more sense to be worried about the 1,000-yard component in receiving from Christian McCaffrey. Jack Coletto got some good separation today in one-on-ones as well against the linebackers for the Raiders. So that's all that I've been able to see of him. He's not getting as much playing time, obviously. He's more of a future developmental project. Maybe the 49ers can stash him on the practice squad. Looking here through more questions. You already want a Steelers 49ers score prediction? Man, I think it's too early for that. That, by the way, it's in less than a month. It's August 11th. That's on September 10th. So the countdown is on, but we've still got some more time. A lot of people want Trey Lance to play, where you're going to get your opportunity on Sunday in the preseason game against the Raiders. It's going to be a lot of Lance. It's going to be a lot of Sam Darnold. It should be no Brock Purdy. We'll see QB1 a little bit later in the preseason schedule. We're going to see Lance and Darnold this weekend. Have any of the younger players surprised me so far in training camp? Well, why don't we open up the depth chart here in the roster? Get this open for you. Take a nice long peek at it. No snaps for Brandon Allen in the past 2 days. That is answer to Mike's question. All right, here you go. So, which players, the younger ones, have surprised me in camp? I think Braden Willis has not looked like a 7th-round tight end. Spencer Wagee has not looked like an undrafted rookie. Deshaun Jameson, same thing, hasn't looked like an undrafted rookie. I've loved Kalon LeBourne and his running style, how low to the ground he is. 49ers have talked about Ronnie Bell being really good over the past couple of days. He's now all of a sudden a punt return candidate with Ray McLeod unavailable. Ilm Manning today rebounded from getting beat in one-on-ones to pile driving his man into the ground. And Ilm is not a tall player. Ilm right here on the depth chart is, I think, too short to be an NFL tackle, but they still put him out there a lot. And he's really, really athletic. So the fact that he was able to answer a challenge physically today and pile drive a defensive tackle working against him, that showed that Ilm Manning's stock is rising. I mean, he is one strong player. 49ers love what they've seen out of Winters and Graham so far. I still need to see some more. All right, hope I answered all your questions. It's going to be time for me to roll. I know it's Friday. It's about to be happy hour. I think everybody wants to get their weekend off to a good start. So this was 49ers practice. It was a fun one, a fun 2 against the Raiders. A hot day. A really hot day out in Las Vegas. Not 110. It was like, I think it's close to 100 right now, but warmer than it is in the Bay Area. 49ers threw a few too many interceptions, 6 INTs across the board, but they can work on that as training camp continues. It's going to be a big showcase for Trey Lance and Sam Darnold on Sunday in the first preseason game. But we went deep into Brock Purdy's interception rate. It's a bit too high right now, I think, to the 49ers' liking. But again, they're taking a big picture look at this because it is August, and that is what they should be doing. August practices are not referendums on individual players, and it just is completely foolish to make it sound like they are. And if you're here for the Jimmy Garoppolo news, he was solid again against the 49ers. All right, everybody take care. Thanks for joining. Like the video, sub to the channel, sub to The Athletic, do all that good stuff. But seriously, sub to the video and the channel right now. We'll talk to you all very soon.